Hello, friends. My name is Jason Clemens, and this is episode 18 of our Big Book study. We're going to start on page 60 with Many of Us Exclaimed. Many of us exclaimed, "What an order! I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear three pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. C, that God could and would if he were sought. Being convinced, we were at step 3, which is that we decided to turn our will and our life over to God as we understood him. Just what do we mean by that, and just what do we do? The first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. On that basis, we are almost always in collision with something or somebody, even though our motives are good. Most people try to live by self-propulsion. Each person is like an actor who wants to run the whole show, is forever trying to arrange the lights, the ballet, the scenery, and the rest of the players in his own way. If his arrangements would only stay put, if only people would do as he wished, the show would be great. Everybody, including himself, would be pleased. Life would be wonderful. In trying to make these arrangements, our actor may sometimes be quite virtuous. He may be kind, considerate, patient, generous, even modest and self-sacrificing. On the other hand, he may be mean, egotistical, selfish, and dishonest. But as with most humans, he is more likely to have varied traits. What usually happens? The show doesn't come off very well. He begins to think life doesn't treat him right. He decides to exert himself more. He becomes on the next occasion still more demanding or gracious, as the case may be. Still, the play does not suit him. Admitting he may be somewhat at fault, he is sure that other people are more to blame. He becomes angry, indignant, self-pitying. What is his basic trouble? Is he not really a self-seeker even when trying to be kind? Is he not a victim of the delusion that he can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this world if he only manages well? Is it not evident to all the rest of the players that these are the things he wants? And do not his actions make each of them wish to retaliate, snatching all they can get out of the show? Is he not, even in his best moments, a producer of confusion rather than harmony? Our actor is self-centered, egocentric as people like to call it nowadays. He is like the retired businessman who lolls in the Florida sunshine in the winter, complaining of the sad state of the nation. The minister who sighs over the sins of the 20th century. Politicians and reformers who are sure all would be utopia if the rest of the world would only behave. The outlaw safecracker who thinks society has wronged him, and the alcoholic who has lost all and is locked up. Whatever our protestations, are not most of us concerned with ourselves, our resentments, or our self-pity? Selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. Driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity, we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt us, seemingly without provocation, but we invariably find that at some time in the past we have made decisions based on self, which later placed us in a position to be hurt. So our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. They arise out of ourselves, and the alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will run riot, though he usually doesn't think so. Above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness. We must, or it kills us. God makes that possible, and there often seems no way of entirely getting rid of self without his aid. Many of us had moral and philosophical convictions galore, but we could not live up to them even though we would have liked to. Neither could we reduce our self-centeredness much by wishing or trying on our own power. We had to have God's help. And with that, let's turn to the study portion. And I know this gets a little confusing since this is a written and a typed study and I'm trying to do it verbally. So what we'll do, the original text, I'll try to make clear that it's from the multilith. And if there's any editorial notes, I'll also try to make that clear as well. Paragraph 2 on page 60. Our description of the alcoholic, which is found in the doctor's opinion and chapter 3 more about alcoholism, the chapter to the agnostic, that's chapter 4, we agnostics, and our personal adventures before and after, that's chapter 1, Bill's story, make clear 3 pertinent ideas. In the original multilith, instead of make clear 3 pertinent ideas, it said, are designed to sell you 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. That's step 1. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. This is the first half of step 2. C, that God could and would if he were sought. That's the second half of step 2. If you are not convinced on these vital issues, you ought to reread the book to this point or else throw it away. In the multilith, that God could and would used to be that God can and will if he were sought. At this point, we have completed steps 1 and 2. Notice how we go directly into step 3 here in paragraph 3. Being convinced, we were at step 3, which is that we decided. Remember that our decisions must be followed up with action in order to make them meaningful. Step 4 is the action. To turn our will, which is our thoughts, and our lives, which are our actions, over to God as we understood him. In paragraph 4, the first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. In the preceding chapters, we see that self-will has little effort regarding our drinking. Now we examine how that is true regarding our lives as a whole. Read through to page 62, paragraph 1. Selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. This is an important point. Our troubles weren't the product of a poor upbringing, horrible parents, being the member of fill in the blank with any subset of society. We had a difficult time of it due to, quote, selfishness, self-centeredness. We have made decisions based on self, which later placed us in a position to be hurt. We have discovered that we are usually the reason for the suffering we have had to experience. We were not the unwitting victims of life that we frequently portrayed ourselves to be. I was astonished when this was pointed out to me. Next paragraph, quote, so our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. We alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness. We must, or it kills us. So it isn't always booze that kills us. Selfishness will kill us indirectly. Throughout the book, we will discover that bottles are only a symbol, that our problem runs deeper than the drinking itself. With our next post, we'll pick up with the end of page 62 and touch upon that spiritual structure that we've been building. Have a great day.